you about what we do, and then ooh, I'm gonna let Tony and Gabby start. Thanks, Luke, for that, recording it. I would have forgotten about that piece. So for those who are watching the recording, this is Project Iowa, and we're gonna start by showing a little video. I didn't get to test it because we kind of ran over, so bear with me if it doesn't work. I'm gonna share my screen.
And hey, Mary, just make sure you click share with sound when you share your screen. Then it should be good.
Okay, let me make sure I do that then. Thank you. Do I have to go to advanced sharing options or just?
You should. So when you just hit the share screen button.
Share with sound. Got it. There's a little click button. Okay, thank you for that, Luke. Okay. So give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
What is a barrier to your American dream? I'd like to be able to have a stable income. I'd like to have insurance. I'd like to be able to take care of my family on that one job. And it's like, oh, well, shouldn't everybody have that? And what we found out is a lot of people did not have that. People from Des Moines, DMAC president, people from DHS, people from religious organizations that belong to Amos, did some research, and they went and looked at other projects throughout the country. So they went down and looked at it and said, hey, can we bring this idea back to Des Moines, Iowa? And the consensus was yes. So that's how we started to move ahead with Project Iowa.
I see Project Iowa as a bridge in a lot of ways, that there's employers here, there's job seekers here, and we build those connections together. Whether we've gone through Project Iowa or not, can imagine, a point in our lives where we've been stuck in a career or been out of work for whatever reason it might be, and trying to kind of rebuild, and how challenging that can be.
I personally have changed careers now 3 times. After learning about Project Iowa, I thought, gosh, it would have been great to have had something like this to kind of help me figure out what should be next for me.
It was at a time in my life when I had made imperfect choices and I was getting back on my feet, did everything that I needed to do to get to a place where I was ready to start working again, but didn't know how to do that. Didn't have the confidence really to do any of that. So I engaged in a Project Iowa program.
First was a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, do I qualify for this? Do I need this?
It was just the push that I needed. I gained more self-confidence, self-esteem. I was more motivated.
And so Project Iowa is a place for people who are on that job hunting path to come together and realize we're not alone. Other people are stuck, are not at a job that they love, are out of work completely. Come together and bounce ideas off of each other.
Especially after COVID, we realized how detrimental loneliness can be on people. And so I really think that community that people build and having somebody that can support them is so important.
Project Iowa was to create sanctuary, which is where a person feels safe, cared for, and free to express themselves without fear of judgment. And that's when the magic starts happening, when people realize that they can show up and be themselves.
There's other avenues to find job-seeking skills. However, as far as the community building that we do, and in conjunction with the life skills that we teach, like emotional intelligence and path to purpose, stress reduction techniques and wellness, it really impacts not just your career, but you in all walks of your life.
We learned all the basic stuff that you'd expect from a job training program. Resume building, computer skills, got a few technical skills under their belt, but I think the most impactful part of the program is our Path to Purpose program, and that's more about your emotional well-being, your social skills, how you interact with people, how you feel about yourself, how you handle adversity.
The Path to Purpose class really helped me dial in what I was wanting for myself, what I was willing to accept for myself, and what I wouldn't.
The class leaders, every time they could see my positive intents, I felt seen and validated. We were all encouraged to participate, and there was just this undercurrent of people believing in me.
They lead them to wraparound services, the things that will keep them in the workplace.
Our communities are healthier and more stable when people feel like they're waking up with a purpose. They're going to a job that they enjoy. And what's beneficial for employers is that they have a workforce who is competent and ready to work.
We try to keep a pulse on what's happening in businesses, what's happening in our economy, what's needed, where's there growth, and that's the type of training and the type of careers we try to lead people to.
When you are investing in Project Iowa, you truly are investing in people. And so when you give that dollar, you really truly are giving hope and change to people right here in your own community.
Project Iowa empowers people to become their best selves. Once you join Project Iowa's family, you are family for life.
Take that initiative to invest in yourself.
We're looking for transformation. And so if you want to transform your life and the results that you're getting in life, then give us a try.
Okay, and with that, I will pass it over to Tony and Gabby.
Hello, my name's Gabby Palacios. I'm Director of Programs at Project Iowa. And I just wanted to thank you all for being here, and we're really excited to share a little bit more about what we do. So that video is new. We're really excited about it. And it's really funny because we shared it at our fundraiser last month, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I know what you do now. It's just like, awesome. But I will add just a little bit more context to some of that before we get to the good part. At Project Iowa, as you can see, we connect people to employment, meaningful employment that people feel gives them purpose. And we also advocate for employment that is a living wage. And on top of that, what makes our program so unique and successful is that we don't just focus on the skills needed to get a job and keep a job in terms of resumes, interviewing. It's really about people changing the way they think about themselves, their circumstances, and how impactful that really can be. A lot of times people come to us maybe thinking it's weird. Why do I need to know this if I just need a job? And then they walk away feeling like this was the best choice that they've made. So with that, in our Cultivating Careers program, we've served over 600 people, close to 700 in the last 10 years. What's really exciting about that is right now in this fiscal year, our average wage for people who complete our program and get employment is $24 an hour. So we're really excited about that, and so are our graduates. We also measure stability. So we know that employment is not only what people walk away with, they increase stability in their lives in other areas. So we measure their stability in housing, financial, health, social and community, emotional, and then their transportation when they start our program and when they complete. And on average, people are increasing their stability across all of those areas by an average of 7 points, which is huge for people in 4 weeks. So, the job piece is huge. However, there's so much more that comes with it. And, they have a staff member who works with them as well to kind of give them that individualized approach while they're also in a group setting with facilitators with their peers to learn. So before I hand it off to Tony, I do want to share that we start a program, a new Cultivating Careers program on May 1st. So as you are listening to us and you either feel like this could be a great fit for you, a client, someone you work with, a family member, I think Mary's going to drop in the chat the link to our website. And once you get on there, you can see more details about dates, times. We offer virtual access and resources for people who may need some help with that. But we want to be as accessible as we can. And so do not hesitate to ask questions. And Tony, the man, the myth, the legend, who's been with Project Iowa since its inception, will talk more about our secret sauce and what makes us different at Project Iowa.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I have a couple complaints I'd like to file before I go forward. Is number one, you guys didn't tell me it was red lipstick day. I would have worn mine. And two, to put me behind the last speaker, totally unfair. She was really quite amazing. So 2 strikes. So let me introduce myself. My name is Tony Wilson. I am a retired educator. Actually, I taught elementary school for about 30 years. I came in contact with the concept of reentry way back in 1998. I was working with individuals. I was working with a partner who worked with individuals coming out of prison, and we had an opportunity to put our two gifts together. And I took care of the head stuff, and he took care of the skill stuff. And so, so that started back in 1998. So this is my 25th year. I have worked in Newton, Fort Dodge, and Mitchellville, starting back in 2002 and 2004 with their KEYS program. Actually, I had an opportunity to help create the curriculum for that. I did a 12-week program inside of Fort Dodge, which I really got a chance to look around and see what prison life was really like. And I've continued since then. Currently, I'm doing 2 things with corrections. One is I'm working with the CIRCA program, which is the United Way in Des Moines, where they're working with returning citizens. And I've been doing that for the last, I don't know, 3-4 years. And I'm working in Cedar Rapids, working around, spent the last 4 years working around the prevention of gun violence in Cedar Rapids, and we've had some really great results. And currently working with men at the Hinsman Center who are have gun charges, helping them look at life a different way. So it's really a comfortable place to be, serving people that are often looked at second-class citizens. So the secret sauce for Path to Purpose, I think the number one thing that as a facilitator that I do is when a person walks in the door, I see them how they are versus what they've done. And so you can imagine if you would just take a minute, if you would, and close your eyes, if you can close your eyes if you want to, and think about the worst thing you've ever done. And then think if you had to live your life based on that. So if you want to go get a job, they'd say, hey, what's the worst thing you've ever done? And you had to tell them. If you want to get an apartment, it's like, oh, what's the worst thing you've ever done? You have to tell them. So that's what it's like to many people who have spent time in correctional facilities. They walk around with these labels. And so, one of the first conversations we have is, are you a felon? I ask people to raise their hands if they're felons. And a very large majority of the people will raise their hands. And I talk to them that words matter. They are not felons. They are people who committed a felony. So you humanize them, first of all, to make sure that they realize who they are. And so many of them will tell me that it's a big relief when they start looking at themselves differently. So that's the humanizing part. Also, if you can imagine, if you imagine walking into a classroom in a prison, the state of mind of the people that are coming into the classroom, many of them are in stress, just from the environment, just from things that they see on a day-to-day basis. So one of the first things that we do in classes is establish what we call at Project Iowa Sanctuary. And Sanctuary is a environment where everybody feels safe, cared for, and free to express themselves. And we talk about why it's important. We talk about the rules in sanctuary. So if somebody says something that's offensive, then it's everybody's responsibility. If you're offended, then it's your responsibility to say something to that person so they can correct whatever they said. Because one of the goals in all the training that we do is to create a community of people who trust each other and can be themselves, because that's when people are at their best. And I'm sure people are familiar with fight, flight, or freeze. And when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, one of the things that happens is the blood goes from the front of your brain, where all the good problem solving, decision making takes place, and goes to the back of your brain, where the amygdala is, and that's where the fight, flight, or freeze response originates from. So as soon as a person's in stress, you're not going to get the best out of them. They're not going to learn. They're not going to be open to learning. And so day one, topic number one is sanctuary. And so that sets the stage. And it does really, it's really amazing, and it doesn't take long for people start becoming comfortable. Then, and the key component for everything that we do in Path to Purpose is helping people understand the power of thought. And once they understand the power of thought, that's what really sets them free. So when I work in corrections, often I'll see literature or videos around that talks about cognitive behavioral therapy, which says thoughts lead to emotions or feelings. Feelings lead to actions. Action leads to results. And if you want a different result, you can't. It's not about changing the behavior. You got to back all the way up to the thought scenario. And one thing that's often left off is the fact that every thought that a person thinks causes their body to create a matching chemical. Well, I should say focuses on, because some thoughts are fleeting. So every thought that you think creates a chemical to match it. So if you're stressed, you're going to put cortisol, adrenaline into your system. And that cortisol, adrenaline is going to determine how you feel. How you feel is going to determine how you act, and how you act is going to determine the results. And so we spend a lot of time talking about that, just helping them understand that they're victims, but they're only victims of their own thinking. And so they get an opportunity to take a look at their thinking. They get a chance to, and I'm a wordologist, and so I'm paying attention to every single word, especially disempowering words. And so, once they get in that environment, and once they start seeing that they now have something that they thought they never had before, which is choice, then they can start making better choices. And so everything we do is like I do a 4-week sessions inside of the facilities, and every week is like, this is some information, apply it, come back and talk about it. And so that's a process that we keep repeating over and over again. One of the things that's amazing, so I'm not a therapist, but at the end of the 4 weeks, people feel different. It has a therapeutic impact on them. And so it's really amazing. One of my favorite, so I do some centering. It's called heart-centered breathing. And when you do this, you focus on the area of your heart, and I teach this to them as well. You focus on your heart area, because that's where all our power is, and you breathe as if you're breathing in through your heart and out through your heart, and then have a positive emotion that you attach to that. And it's a way of centering people. And I recall one class walking in, it's probably week 3, where there was so much joy in that room. This is in the middle of Newton Correctional Facility. So much joy in the room with people laughing. So I often use that scene as my positive feeling, because I see the results of the work that we've been doing. So everybody in the class, I'll say, has the opportunity to talk, but they will talk. Everybody is called on. So if I ask a question, which I do, everything. So I'm sure if you're in corrections, you know about motivational interviewing. So that's really the approach I take when I'm working with them. So it's a lot of questions, a lot of opportunities for them to take a look at what they say and how they see themselves. So and when I first started doing this back in 1998, it was, I knew people came into the room and they may not have the best self-concept, and they may think that no one would gain anything from what they say. So my initial thing was to present them with something and have them express their opinion on something. So there's no right or wrong answer. And so the more they did that, they got more comfortable. They got it with sharing and talking in class. Then I introduced a topic that talks about geese and how they honk to encourage each other to keep up their speed. So then I want to help validate them. So what the best way to do that is have somebody comment on what that person said. So if I said something, if Gabby was nice to me, which she is every now and then, I would say, Gabby, I really appreciate the fact that you took the time to share that information with me the other day. It doesn't have to be anything, but it has to be real, has to be authentic. And when people start getting validated that way, they're willing to take more risks. They tend to think that maybe something they have to say has some value. And so their self-esteem improves. There's a lot of the stuff is going on as we go through class. One of the things I tell them is one of the goals is to take them from victim, which we're a victim of our own thinking, to victor. And that's something that happens through the class because they realize if you get in corrections, you'll often hear people say, and drug treatment facilities, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. Or insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So we help them get a different result, but you get that different result by changing your thinking. It's all cognitive based because that's where all our power is. So I just want to pause there for a minute to see if anybody has a question before I go any further, because I'd like to have conversations. I'm not really a lecturer. Is there anything in the chat?
There's a couple questions. First one is, how is the nationwide labor shortage over the last 2 or 3 years affecting Project Iowa's operations and enrollment? And have you seen local employers recognizing Project Iowa programs completion as a benefit to the graduates' higher ability? Gabby, do you want to take those ones?
Yeah, I was gonna say I know Tony can probably help also with some of these. So our enrollment has totally changed. I think before COVID, getting employment was challenging, and people really felt like they needed us to help them get that foot in the door. So not only are we connecting with job seekers in Iowa, we're also working with employers to kind of see how to best fit people, get to know different employers in our area that are hiring, what's their company like, what's their values, so that we can refer people and put them in a position where they're going to be successful. And so when COVID happened, that changed employment and really what the workforce looked like everywhere. And what we really saw is that pause where people were really looking at, I'm not just going to get a job to get a job. I want something that's going to make me happy. I really want to feel fulfilled. And people being, more picky about where they go and what matters to them. And so that kind of shifted really people's focus. We had classes of 30 people going, 20, 30 people going through the pandemic virtually from around the state, which was awesome for us. Right now we're still seeing that people maybe leaving certain industries where they've been working for 20, 30 years and wanting a change. and really focusing on, what is going to make them feel fulfilled, whether it's a certain, salary, working flexibility. And, that's how we're working with employers too, about what are you offering job seekers, because I think that's what they're really focusing on right now. I see my coworker, Zach Steele. Zach, do you want to? I see you turned your video on, so I don't know if that's like a letting me know you want to jump in.
Yeah, I can. So yeah, I'm Zach Steele with Project Iowa. I've done work in Newton and Mitchellville prisons since 2016, 2015, something like that. As far as how our population base has changed, recruiting, it has been kind of all over, as Gabby talked about, including, just being able to recruit from further throughout the state, throughout the world, frankly. We're truly Project Iowa in a way that pre-COVID, we were Project Des Moines, basically, Project Polk County. But yeah, we have seen employers recognize our program, what we do, teaching to the whole person. We have employer relationships with Easter Seals, who's hired almost a dozen of our participants at this point. They come speak to each and every one of our classes. And to what Gabby's saying, we see people who are really looking for different approaches to work. So we've seen people take kind of significant pay cuts because they're more passionate about the work that they're going to be doing. That's not every case. We've seen it go the other way as well, as Gabby referenced with her wage data. But yeah, it's a whole new world out there for job seekers in this post-COVID environment, post-Great Resignation environment. And I'm sure many of us have seen the conversation change from, we'd love to help those people that you guys are doing great work for, but we just can't because of our policies. And, now many employers are singing a different tune. As Tony mentioned yesterday with Frontier Co-op, you got to get creative, and we're seeing employers being forced to do that over the past 2 to 3 years.
Thanks, Zach.
One thing I'd like to add too about the COVID is it really has given us a great opportunity. Now we're virtual, which is why I really wanted Project Iowa to present today, because we can be accessible to the communities everyone here serves. And we can do that in multiple ways. One of the cool ways is it's virtual, and we can offer technology assistance so people can attend classes. And what I love about that piece is that we're really building community, and we have people from all walks of life in our classes. So, how conversations in minds and hearts change about reentry and about people who are reentering, I think, is through community and through relationships. And so I think that's a great positive opportunity for individuals to be mixed in with other groups of people and with different life experiences, because you find once you're in a room of people, you have a lot more in common than you have not in common. So I think that's a really cool opportunity. And then the other thing is we can potentially work with specific organizations to do something specifically for the people you're working with as well. And what's great about our program is it can be customizable, so that potentially if we just need the path, the purpose, and that community building piece and those wellness pieces, because I think that connection is huge for reentry, and people having connections, and that path, the purpose content would be really helpful to keep the hope. So those are just a few things that I wanted to offer as well. And then that one-on-one coaching is a piece that we have that everyone's going to want different things, and everyone's at different spaces in their life. So you might need a career right now and to pay the bills, and it's part of your parole. And however, you can get to the next step after you have a career. So that's kind of the piece that I wanted to just offer in. Zach answered that question in the chat already. Sorry.
I also just wanted to make sure, I see Seth, you had asked about employers recognizing our graduates. And as Zach had kind of touched on, our program and our expectations are built to help people get outside their comfort zone, to learn and to hold them accountable. So we really model it in a way of being able to take feedback from your peers or from your job coach to working in a group with people, showing up on time. A lot of the things that employers tell us they need are skills that aren't always taught in a classroom, or maybe really challenging for people depending on what their experiences are and their background. So we create a space, like Tony said, establishing sanctuary, letting people know it's okay to make mistakes, to put yourself out there. And that's how people start to change. And it's really beautiful to see, someone who started the first day, how much they change by 4 weeks. It seems like a long time to commit to, however, it goes by very quick. And employers recognize that from us, and they keep coming back. One of our employers has employed about a dozen of our graduates because they see how different they are from hires that are not from Project Iowa. So Tony, I don't know if you want to add anything else, but it is very impactful.
I had a question for Mr. Wilson, Tony.
Yes, sir.
So you said your experience at Fort Dodge Correctional Facility and that experience, kind of lining that up with the power of thought. And also I want to know, did that power of thought have any kind of curriculum? Is there a curriculum to that?
I have written a book that has that in. It's called "You Are Enough," but it really is cognitive behavioral therapy. If you'll help people understand at the very beginning that everything that they do and every result they get is from their thinking. And if you want some more information, I would be more than glad to talk to you about it and share what I have.
Okay. And then I had another question. You talked about your experience going into Fort Dodge Correctional Facility. And how long did you get a chance to experience that?
So I was in there for 12 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. And would you recommend, I mean, I'm sure that was life-changing in some kind of a way, right?
Yeah, that's when I walked out at the end of the day.
Yeah. Would you would you think that would be something that would be very helpful in some kind of a training for probably other staff members that are involved with reentry, and why?
I do, but I think what would really be helpful for people is like when we do these classes inside the prisons, if people could come in and participate in those classes. In any class that we do, you cannot come in as an observer, because there's something everybody can learn from these situations. So you would come in and participate fully. All Project Iowa staff has to go through Path to Purpose. Our board has to go through Path to Purpose, because we want to have a common language and common expectations. But yes. And if there's ever an opportunity even to work with people who are working in reentry, to do a class, we could do a virtual class to demonstrate and walk through that process as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Jared, I see you on the call. I like to call people out. You know that you've been in the classroom. What do you see the impact of the work that at Newton?
Let me get the video started. I see a change in the thinking of every one of the classes that you have, and I would say their mentality tends to turn from more of that typical, stereotypical prison mentality to more of a positive outlook on things. And I really like to just go in and take a few minutes to watch you teach and see how you work, because I do appreciate the effect that you have on these guys.
And would you
And would you agree that it's really when they start looking at their thinking is when everything starts changing?
Yeah, and I don't even think they truly realize what's happening.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Because, I can sit here and talk about, this is such a great program. And if you just come to my class, you'll be all healed. But it's really what people say, and it's the impact that the class has. So is anybody else familiar with the work we do inside the prisons? So I would like to talk about, so everything that we do, every question that we ask, everything that we do in class, always comes back to what is the impact of what you learned? Because a lot of times, and then being open to that feedback too, and so if they are talking about the power of thought, they are asked to go back and apply that somewhere and come back and talk about what was the impact of changing, looking at the way they think. And so that's probably the biggest changes happen when they hear from their peers. So, because everybody's in community now, and so everybody's sharing their information. So they actually get to learn from others. And I remember probably one of the biggest ahas I had was, I don't know, it's been several years ago, but I walked in to one of the classes at probably at Fort Dodge, I think it was. And I had judged this individual mentally because he was full of tattoos. So I thought, oh, here we go again. It's going to be tough. And he was actually the kindest, gentlest person that I had met. And so, we got to take away the stereotypes, because what we see is not often who they are. And so I just also had a conversation with a young man on Thursday who when I walked into class, he was talking to his PO and sharing all the negative things that was happening in his life and how he was cussing, and language was terrible. And then just really didn't have a good idea. And I said, so what would your mother say about you? And his voice changed, his demeanor changed. And so, and he said, and the sad thing is, he said he tried to bury that part of him. So really, this is all about getting back to your authentic self, valuing the things that you've done, and getting a better outlook. Because like I said, if you can imagine being judged by the worst things you've done, and you have to live with that for the rest of your life, I mean, that's really traumatizing. So a lot of people talk about trauma-informed care, but trauma-informed care says, let's do what you need to do to reduce and eliminate that trauma. So one of the biggest things we talk about too, I said this earlier, I believe, is the difference between who you are and what you've done. And there's a big difference, because we call it the child of the divine in our training, but that's who we are. And so all the things we've done, that is not who we are. And so people can get rid of a lot of that baggage that they've been carrying around with them when they start realizing that difference. Gabby, you're shaking your head because you're not supposed to move on these videos.
I know, I have to not blink or look at you. I was ready to call on me. I think yeah, it is very transformational, and what's great about it is these concepts really do apply to everybody. We, in some of our programs, we have a whole mix of people from different walks of life, different ages, different experiences, skill sets, and a lot of them share the same struggles, or the same guilts and shames about different things in their lives. When we go into the facilities and the institutions, we see that. We've done some classes inside of different halfway houses in the community. The Beacon, which is for women. We've done some stuff at Harbor of Hope, which is for men. And it's the same response comes of it, that a lot of them really do share the same feelings, and they're not alone. And sometimes For some of these groups, whether it's reentry, recovery, or a mix of both, it can feel very isolating. So with our approach, it is to build relationships, to build community, to make it safe. And what is great afterwards is we see that people share it with their friends, with their families, or I'll check back in. I had checked in with the Harbor of Hope after we were done a few weeks later, and the program manager was like, "Oh, they're still doing this thing that you guys taught us," or they're checking me in on certain things. And it's really cool to see how these communities really use what they learned because it works. And so those are just some different examples of how it's applied to different groups of people.
And the amazing part, so actually I have a nonprofit that I work with, Project Iowa with. And so I do training other than in corrections as well. So I've been in college classrooms, I've been in corporate America. I had the opportunity to work with United Way and to train their staff. But when I go to a prison and I see people and not convicts or whatever, there's no difference between working in corporate America, education. Everybody comes with the same issues, a lot of self-limiting beliefs that they carry around with them. So this is not a curriculum that just works with people in corrections. It works with everybody. Like I said, we just completed a 4-week training with the staff of Project Iowa board this last Monday, because we know that unless we keep this in the forefront of our mind, then we're going to go back to business as usual. But I don't think that's possible. So Mary, I got a question for you. You've been with Project Iowa how long?
Sorry, I was trying to pin myself and unmute. I've been at Project Iowa for 8 years.
So why did you think this presentation would be appropriate for this conference?
I thought I actually got really excited about it one night and I couldn't sleep, because we've never had the ability to be virtual before. And so we have this amazing opportunity to be able to serve people from across the state. And I really feel like the Path to Purpose curriculum would be great for reentry, because it can be very isolating, very overwhelming, come up against a lot of barriers, and that can feel defeating. And so I think just the ability to know the power you have with your thinking and how you can take control over your life and get agency through that way would be really life-changing for people. And I've seen that happen through working here. And the foundation of everything is you are enough, and you're not what you've done, so I just think that, and the community building is why I feel like Project Iowa would be really great for people who are reentering, to give them hope and community, which I think is a resource that is lacking sometimes while people are experiencing reentering.
So I started this work back in 1998 because it was really, I'm glad you said something about hope, Mary. I can't believe I didn't say that. But I started because I worked in the inner city of Des Moines, and just noticed the community was not prospering. And so I have 2 master's degrees that one of them I'm more proud of than the other, but one's a master's degree from Drake in curriculum and instruction. That's the MSE, and then I also have a MSU, which is a master's of making stuff up. And so when I noticed this hopelessness that I saw, I took my curriculum instruction background and start putting together materials, but it really was to address the sense of hopelessness. And that's what really charged me to keep going. And then Mary, you also talked about building community, because that's one of the most important things that we do is building community. So the last component of the Path to Purpose curriculum. So we have a blend of science and spirituality, because people come with spiritual beliefs, and I don't think they have to leave them at the door, but it's a blend. And what I tell people is anything that I say, I'm bilingual, so I can say it using a scientific language, or I can use a spiritual language. But we have something that we call the emotional guidance scale, which is a tool to help people become aware of their emotions. So a lot of times people don't have the vocabulary. Thank you, Mary. They don't have the vocabulary to tell how they're really feeling. They'll just say they're angry or they're mad or whatever. This has emotions on a scale from 1 to 22. 1 is joy, knowledge, appreciation, freedom, love. And 22 is powerlessness, depression, some of those negative emotions. We have people identify where they are on the scale. So now they have a language to talk about where they are. Then we have them choose where they would like to be. And once again, their job is not what looks easy, but where would you like to be? And then we have them practice for a week, come back next week, live your new number as much as possible, and notice the impact. And so people start realizing that they are not victims of what happens outside of them. They are victims of what happens inside. So if you work on getting your inside right, you can go out and deal with the world. And so this is, like I said, it's the law of attraction. And I help them understand how that it's real, because I ask them to finish the statement, and I ask them what goes around, and they'll say, what comes around? What comes around goes around, goes around, comes around. You reap what you sow, karma, and usually there's a negative connotation for karma, but karma also it works for the positive as well as the negative. So they start seeing that whatever they put out in the world, they're going to get back. So now they take responsibility of how they act, and if they want something better, they got to behave better. So they got to think better, they got to feel better, and then life gets better. And with that, I better stop.
You have one question, Tony. Susie asked, Tony, do you believe cognitive-based therapy is for everyone, or that it has age limitations regarding thought process change?
I'm glad they said, do you think? Thought, yes, it applies to everybody, because everybody's life is determined by their thinking. That's where everything starts. And all things are possible. So you want change, all things are possible. And I saw some people had their contact information in the chat. I put my email address in the chat. So if you'll contact me, then I won't have to worry about reading the chat and trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. So I'd appreciate that. Anybody else have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have one more for you, Mr. Wilson. Because I know that you use terminology like, all things are possible, and they are. I totally believe that. But do you ever run into, have you ever ran into any issues like with religion? And I know that you said religion is a part of it, right?
Or spirituality.
Okay, spirituality. But have you ever run into any conflict with that, dealing with religion? Because I know when you say all things are possible, that's also a very, very famous scripture. And so I'm just wondering if you had any conflict using that with the class and reentry.
We've had conversations around that, but not conflict. I mean, so that's part of the sanctuary. If you feel that way, let's have a conversation.
Right. So normally the people don't rebel against it. They more or less see that it's positive and understand it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I have to be able to speak both ways, scientifically as well. And so I study quantum physics, and so I know about what happens in quantum physics, so I can talk about it from that way as well. Thank you, sir. And Eli, you have a question?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a blend between question and comment, because I'm really getting down with what you're saying, just out of the fact that I think we have to consciously be mindful and approach everything with as individuals, we need to have ownership, and then we also have to have grace and forgiveness for ourselves and others. But gratitude and compassion impact that whole list above. And everyone that I'm dealing with, myself first and foremost, have lived my life in the pursuit of pleasure or suffering, and to find neutrality in the middle is to be still and understand that you don't have to be either in pleasure mode or in suffering mode. You know, emotions are truly the only thing we're in control of. And I find what you're saying to be a non-theistic or a non-religious approach at things, and just inherently understanding that we all have a frequency and it's different for each individual. And we have to identify that with our clients or whoever we're interacting with. And it brings an immense amount of joy to me to know that the evolution of engagement with people is upon us, and the impact that cognitive behavior therapy and just the list of things that you've brought up is definitely a breath of fresh air, because the way it has been isn't necessarily the way it should be as we move forward in dealing with people. So
thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Eli, I just wanted to add to something you said about you know, kind of finding that neutrality in all of it can be challenging. Another component of our program is wellness. And, you know, what Tony's talked about is a lot of the, you know, the emotions and the mental, kind of the work that you're doing inside. And we know that for a lot of people, that can elicit physical challenges and stressors. And for a lot of people, they numb it with maybe substances or certain behaviors that are not, you know, that aren't going to get them very far. You know, it's probably dangerous stuff or things that they're trying not to do. And so our wellness curriculum really goes hand in hand of how to effectively manage stress, how to have appropriate coping skills. And we have a variety of techniques. We have some fabulous facilitators who are very have a wealth of knowledge in different practices and techniques, and kind of teaching people, what do you do with all of that, and how do you manage that, whether it's with your family, on the job. It's stuff that can be applied to many different situations. And people, you know, there's some things that, hey, that wasn't really for me, that was kind of weird, and things like, wow, I've never done that before, that was super helpful. And so we know that both of those have to happen. And so that's really helped our approach be much more holistic and help people like work through all those little pieces of changing their thoughts, changing their mindset, and then how does that physically impact them, and how can we manage that in a healthy way.
Can I just kind of bounce off of that real quick? I can say since being introduced to this concept in my recovery, in the last almost 8 months, I've lost 107 pounds through meditation and yoga. And it's just the mindfulness and being aware of what my body needs. It's not a diet. It's not anything other than just finding peace in the neutrality. So when I hear this, that's why I had to speak up, and I didn't mean to play off of what you said, but I wanted you to know that I don't say these things lightly, because they've impacted me immensely. So bravo and hats off to all of you that are really moving forward with this practice, because it's a game changer. It's kind of, I hate to say it, it's a one size fits all, but it's a different size for everybody. But there's a lot to be said in it. And with that, I'll stop running my mouth.
It's the same size, just a different color. You get to choose the color, but the same thing works for everybody.
Okay, well, I know I could talk about Project Iowa all day, and I really appreciate the engagement and everybody asking questions and giving their experiences. However, we have our next speaker at 11, and it's going to be a really great one. So I want to thank Tony and Gabby and Zach for your time and for sharing about Project Iowa. Our contact information is in the chat. And then we're going to send out resources at the end too with the evaluation for the conference that we can also include contact information. Get a hold of either Tony or Gabby or myself or Zach or whoever. So thank you so much, Project Iowa. Our next